Hey, afternoon, friends. Bill here. How you doing? Hope you're having a good week. Having a good one here. Lots going on as usual. The world of sports and concerts always provides plenty of opportunity. This week, or I guess starting Saturday, Damien, who was with us in Niagara Falls in Edmonton, he lives in Edmonton, Canada. Edmonton, Alberta is a province. I think that's how you say it, Canada. He has another chance to keep preaching at the Edmonton Oilers NHL games during the Stanley Cup, and they're marching on. So I was talking to Dale Maleko, if you know Dale, and Dale, who joined us at the Super Bowl in Atlanta, and then we were in the Grey Cup in Regina a couple years ago. That's the CFL, Canadian Football League Super Bowl, and so Dale gets on and prays with us every day. Hey Heath, how you doing? Dale prays with us every Monday night, and so he said they were praying that Edmonton would get in the finals, so those guys could keep preaching. He said, in fact, Dale said, in fact, and there's really kind of a well, you might, I don't quite call it a revival, but definitely the work of God's Spirit. Apparently, he's faced opposition for a long time. There's this person up there at Edmonton that really aggressively opposes him. It's almost like, I think, one of these people, I think John Barrows calls them carnies, or did call them carnies, and just really, really, really aggressive against Dale. Get a speaker behind him and turn up really, really loud to the point where the Edmonton City Council was thinking about outlawing or eliminating it, making a legal application. And so we started praying about that, and that's gone from that point to now people are coming up and asking, kind of what must I do to be saved? There's a ton of preachers out in Edmonton, and so the Lord's definitely doing a work in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So praise the Lord for that. Think of Damien, when you pray about Canada, and Dale. They're both in Edmonton and keep preaching as well. So that's going on. And then I think MLS stuff is going on as well. I haven't really started to follow that yet. Baseball is going on. So much opportunity. If you live near a stadium or arena, then let me know. If you've never preached before, these are unbelievable opportunities to preach, not only at sporting events, but the concerts that go on in these venues. In Atlanta, when I was there, it was called Phillips Arena back then, where the Hawks played basketball, this NBA team. Actually, back early on, they had the Atlanta Hawks NBA team. You had the Atlanta Thrashers NHL team. And then you had concerts down there. And so Phillips Arena in that area, which was next to the stadium, Georgia Dome football stadium, was busy all the time. And so what happens is that you get down there all the time, people get used to seeing you. And, you stand out in front of Phillips Arena, a couple of times a week. Before long, you're kind of a fixture. And there's this one gentleman, he worked behind the counter. I cannot remember how we met, but he would come up to me every now and then and say, hey, great to see you. And you just never know who's watching, who's looking. And then around those arenas, you not only have people coming for the event, but you have people that are there that work there, police, ticket scalpers, people who work behind the counter like this gentleman and so forth. So I remember in Phillips Arena as well, it was connected to the CNN building. CNN had a food court, and I would go in there and get a cup of coffee at the Dunkin' Donuts. And there was always the same person there for a while. So just there's so much continuity that happens around these arenas and stadiums. That's why we certainly advocate preaching at them. In addition, just to reaching a lot of people, you can have a personal or chaplain-like pastoral ministry. So if you live by an arena or stadium, let me know. There's only like 600 something in the world. And, theoretically with like 700 evangelists, we could cover the world's sports and concerts primarily. It'd be pretty amazing opportunity. So that's what we're sort of advocating here. So let me know if that's you. Well, today we got Brad Madewell back on. Brad and I are taking a special trip starting tomorrow. I'm going to bring him on, and we're going to talk about it. Brad, how you doing?
Doing just fine, Bill.
What's going on today?
Oh, just got through work today.
Good.
So, yes,
They treat you well?
Yeah, went well.
Anything special?
No, nothing really out of the norm today, that is.
Tell the people what you do.
As far as my work?
Yeah.
Oh, I work at Erlanger Hospital. Basically filling medical supplies on different areas of the hospital.
Yeah.
Restocking and pulling those, and really taking care of the customers inside along with the patients, because you need those medical supplies for day-to-day things there.
So you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Does it give you a chance to witness or be a witness, be salt and light?
It does. It's a really good opportunity to leave tracks. It's amazing the different spots you can leave tracks at gospel tracks at too. One-on-one witnessing, maybe a little bit, but it depends on the time of the day, and how much time I got. But you can put gospel tracks in a lot of places, bro.
So you preach down at UTC too, right?
Yes.
Just how often you go down there?
Well, basically every 2 weeks. Once every 2 weeks. But right now it's in a summer break. There's really not that much action going on right now. So back in August, we'll get back going there.
Tell us about some of those interactions with those particular students.
Yes. It varies. I mean, like the street preachers know, it varies, and it kind of comes and goes with, who may stop. And I've had a few that'll stop and engage and even ask for prayer every now and then, or I'll ask them if I could pray with them about something, and a lot of them will say, yeah, my studies, or I got a final exam coming up. You pray with me on that, And so, it's just a good opportunity to, and then kind of engage with the gospel a little bit more there. Those that do stop, because as you know, on college campuses, they may just be going in between classes, or they may have a few more minutes, depending on their class schedule.
So I saw something the other day. I saw a picture from that location. It looked like the JW's had a stand up there. Are they there now?
They are a lot. Just about every time I've went in the last spring, this year, spring of this year semester, we've seen them, and so yeah. And sometimes they're in that prime spot where we usually went, so we just go across the street, and preach and share and hand out gospel tracts. I had a kid not too many times ago. It was a pretty good encounter with him. He was a little bit, or I say a little bit, confused about as far as salvation. I believe he was saved, but he said, you got to be baptized too. And so it was a good discussion, about 50, he had time. I took him to the side and we talked 15, 20 minutes. But, one of those things like, I guess, a works righteousness in addition to salvation, which you and I both know no.
True. I had this guy do the same thing at UT one time. He yelled at me. He goes, "Tell him the truth." And I thought, well, I'm telling the truth. Well, obviously, you're trying to tell me I'm not saying something. So I'll finish this. And so what he meant was tell them they need to be baptized.
Yeah.
He was a Church of Christ guy. And I thought, well,
this guy was too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Church of Christ, you may or may not know this. I think they have a school, a Bible college in Middle Tennessee somewhere.
No, I did not know that.
So,
and then also there's opportunities, even here by the home. I found a really good spot at Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. At a Quick Trip gas station I go to some, and that's been a good spot to preach at, and so
people come up and say anything to you, or
they do. Not every time. I'll have maybe every other time or something like that. Somebody might stop by or walk across, because I got to come across the grass and onto the public sidewalk, and so and they may speak with me a little bit, in prayer again. So it's like you said, there's always opportunities.
they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Where two or more gathered, there's an opportunity. That's for sure.
That's right.
I was thinking about you closing down the bridge, or probably next year to repair it. Did you see that?
No, you talking about the walking bridge?
Yeah.
Oh boy, no, I did not know that. I didn't say that.
Start next year, yeah. It's been up there like 30 years, 50 years or something. So they're going to rehab it, so it'll go another 30 or 50, I guess. So
yeah, do a lot of construction on it, I guess. Okay, that's a good spot too. It's amazing the foot traffic in that North Shore, that bridge. It's pretty
When do you
constant.
go?
Do what?
When do you go?
I hadn't been there in a while. It's actually been a few months, so I need to hit it before they close it down. Hit it a little more. But in the summertime, you could go even during the week and probably have a decent
Yeah.
amount of some families out there. But a Saturday's always good, of course. So
Cool. Well, good. Well, let's talk about going to Montreal. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen?
never been to Canada in my life, brother. So we'll
Yeah.
see what happens.
It's starting tomorrow. Brad and I got to journey up to Montreal and for the Montreal Grand Prix. And I've never been there either. I've been to Canada, 5, 6 times, but I don't know what to expect. I do see. I think I told you this. The guy that was with us, Niagara Falls, Damien, who lives in Edmonton, he knew some guys who were preaching in Montreal, and so I saw the pictures on Facebook. So they're definitely preaching with amps on the ground. So we should be all right. We just have
How
to
close
find.
is Edmonton to Montreal? Not to,
Man, it's like Seattle to New York City. It's at the other end of the
oh, it's the
country.
other side. Okay, yeah.
So it's long. Yeah, Canada's a massive piece of property. It's just huge, and so it's a long way between cities. It's
Right.
like I think it is 6 hours. It's 4 or 6 hours from Ottawa. If you look on the map, you'll see Toronto going up east, then Ottawa, the capital, and then Montreal. I think it's 6 hours, so it's a long drive.
Right.
So all that means it's a big place, but so we should be in good shape. Yeah, I think the thing up there, they do speak French, and so I'm not sure that's going to work out in terms of how it unfold. But we've got some French gospel booklets to take with us, and I think the thing about Canada. So I've been to Toronto. What I'm citing here is how I would have this perspective. I've been to Ottawa. We preached in Ottawa, the capital. Toronto, Niagara Falls, Hamilton, they're there. Vancouver, Regina. I've been to Calgary before, and so the cities are all typically generate a relative amount of foot traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So we're starting off with that's my anticipation. There'll be people there normally, and then the event will add people, so it should be a good opportunity to reach a lot of people.
But I believe there'll be a lot of English speaking also.
Yeah, oh yeah. I think the French thing is kind of like going to New Orleans. I think, when you listen to stories, I think over the years, you start to see how stories filter up. So they'll have these groups that are say, hey, we want to speak French only. Like if you come into the province, you've got to speak French. And that's just kind of a fringe group. That's not really what's going on. So
Right.
I think that. So they'll have signs in English and French. Do you have a French Bible at all?
Do I?
Yeah.
No.
I think I've got one.
Oh, well, you think I can read it?
No, but I tell you what I did. We went to Paris. I went to Paris once and stood on the Champs-Elysees there by the Louvre, and I read the first 3 chapters of John over and over again in my redneck French. But I knew what it said. If somebody came up and said something to me, I didn't know what I was reading. But after a while, you see words, and so it worked pretty good. It worked good enough. So we met a lot of people. Met like a Chinese pastor, and some of these other cities. You meet people from around the world. They're more worldwide oriented, and
That's
people
something.
that come there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. Also learned a lesson. These Muslim guys were going by, and I don't know what they said, but I said something back to them, and they were these 3 really big dudes. And they came back and got my face, and I thought, well, I'm just going to have to let them say what they want to say because
Right.
I'm here in Paris anyway. So it's good. It worked good. It'll be good.
Well,
Well,
hopefully.
cool.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I said keep going.
You said you had some Gospel of John's, wasn't it, in French?
Some gospel booklets, like their scripture booklets in French. Yeah. We're going to pick those up tomorrow.
Give out a lot of them, and just see what the Lord does. What kind of opportunities He opens up. So.
I mean, you went down to St. Pete. I think we were over there in Miami for the Grand Prix. Just the fans of the Grand Prix are a different crowd. It's not like going. So in other words, if you think in terms of stewardship, we're going to find not only French Canadians, but Formula One fans, and they're not like regular sports fans. They're not football fans who watch Formula One. They're definitely different. And in Miami, at least, they appeared to be, they spoke other, probably Spanish, and they probably
Mm-hmm.
were Central South America. Well, they might have lived in Miami, but so it creates a little bit different vibe. It's one thing to go preach to a bunch of guys in the South at a football game.
Yeah.
It's another thing, or the Derby. It's nothing to get around these other kind of people. They're not quite so, what's the word,
Um,
combative. Sort of naturally, you're just waiting for the combat. In Miami, I mean, I think we saw that pretty much in Tampa and St. Pete that they weren't combative,
today.
not
Mm-mm.
necessarily, so
No.
should be pretty good. So hopefully we'll meet those guys. We'll get up there. We're going to stay about an hour away from downtown and then ride
Okay.
in. And so on these kind of trips, I think what we're looking for, just to kind of say out loud, they're exploration trips to go up there and see the lay of the land. And typically, you might have heard me say this before, but even like in anything really, there's always somebody's got to go first. And the first guy, kind of the prophet in a sense, without overstating what a prophet is. Hey guys.
Huh, be
And,
kind of like Abraham, send him to a land that he knew
yeah,
not of, and he went.
yeah. Yeah, you go, you spot the land, you kind of get a feel for it. A couple of guys out there, meet some other people, see where the things are, and the next year, more people go. I mean, I went to the. So in other words, we're just going to talk about the trip and what kind of a goal is. I'll cite some
Okay.
illustrations. So I started going to the Derby. I think I went up there by myself for a couple of years, like 2005 or six. And a friend of mine from Chattanooga, Dean, his name is Dean. Actually, he had a brother who lived in Louisville. And so the first year I stayed with them and I was there by myself. And I kind of got a feel for it. And even if you go by yourself, you don't necessarily see everything.
Right.
And then, so anyway, that was, and then some people went up. I think my buddy Chap went, some other guys I know. We stayed over at the Southern Seminary has a conference center. I can't think of what it's called. And we stayed there once or twice. They had nice sort of hotel rooms. We stayed there a couple of times, and then they began to understand the Derby. The Derby was really going from kind of this. I mean, it was a big event for TV, but it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily. It seemed to have all the hype around it when I first got there. So what I'm saying is, though, at some point, the Southern Seminary caught on what was going. All these people coming to town, so they raised their rates, and then we found the camp, Cedar Ridge Presbyterian Camp, and so 4 or 5 of us stayed at the camp a couple of years. At the camp, they had some houses and they had some cabins, and then we started getting more people to come, and so we got a couple of the houses, and it just keeps on rolling. So
Right.
then now it's what it is today when
Sure.
there were 35 guys there. So that's the, if you're in a ball game, you've seen that. Like you go by. I remember I was standing the Super Bowl in Houston. And I thought, man, I was down there by myself. I was on the main street. It's called the Main Street, and people were everywhere. And I said, I've got to get some help. And so I went from that day. I'd already been to a couple of them. You just progress through. So eventually, the goal will be to obviously have 10, 20 guys there for the
Right.
weekend. And so this weekend, we'll just start that process and figure things out, look around, stuff like that. So that should be fun. What's your thought?
I like it. I really hope we can connect with 3 or 4 of them you was talking about there near the in that Montreal area too.
Yeah.
So
First guy may not come back. Yeah, that's true, Gary. First guy may not come back. So
what did he say? What was
first guy may not come back. So we'll go up there together and stand shoulder to shoulder. I was reading this is really interesting. I was reading anyway, 2 Chronicles 13. I'm sure I've read it before. I just didn't pay attention. And so in that chapter, and this is really about the Lord protecting you, calling on the Lord. So that's the point of the story, point of the chapter in a sense. But Abijah was king after Rehoboam. So Rehoboam was Solomon's son, and he was the one that made the dreaded decision, which divided the nations. And so you had Rehoboam, and then Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who came and took Israel, and Rehoboam governed Judah. So he dies, and Abijah comes on the throne. So he's going to fight, or really, it's Jeroboam. Israel wants to fight Judah. Jeroboam has 800,000 people, and Abijah has 400,000. And you ought to read it because it's a great message that Abijah brings. But he tells Jeroboam, he basically rebukes him for worshiping idols.
right?
And don't the Lord is with us. Don't attack us, or you're going to lose. It's kind of the message. And of course, Jeroboam attacks. He actually set up an ambush around the army of Abijah, and so the Lord fought for Abijah, and 500,000 of the soldiers of Jeroboam died. So my point is, you go into these new environments, and there's lots of sort of hesitation and what's going to happen. But the Lord's with us, and so we're going to anticipate having some semblance of a victory.
Amen. That kind of reminds me of the beginning of Joshua 1 too, chapter 1. Wherever you go, the Lord is with you. Do as I command. Yeah.
So, I think that's what you have to see. We're going there, God willing, and setting the stage for the future and doing something now. Of course, people hear the gospel now. Even our broken French will benefit from it as well. So
broken.
you never know. Redneck French. Did you ever hear that story about? I'm sure you did, about Larry Sullivan, don't you?
You've told me about him. Yes, I've never met him. I don't believe, but yeah.
Well, Larry, tell me, this is about speaking poor English. And so, Larry, we were over in Scotland, I think. Did I tell you this?
Go ahead. It's funny.
And so, anyway, Larry was preaching, and this Asian guy was standing there watching him. And after a while, the Asian guy comes up to him, and Larry lives in Tuscaloosa, and he's definitely a South Alabama guy.
Right.
And the Chinese guy goes, "What language are you speaking?" And so he said, "English." He goes, "That's the worst English I ever heard."
Oh, I would have had, my eyes would have been watering on that one.
That's pretty funny. That's gonna be us. What language are you speaking? French. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
I've had a couple people. I'll tell you this right quick, and you can clarify. A couple people at work, and they don't probably lost, but anyways, when I'm just sharing a little bit about the ministry and going to Canada and proclaiming the gospel on the streets, they're like, they don't have freedom of speech out there. Have you heard this in Canada?
No, tell me.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm not.
They ask you if you've heard that. They ask you if you've heard that. Are you asking me, or they ask you?
Have you heard that? They're telling me that. Oh, they got speech laws up there. I'm like, whatever.
That's another thing, I've heard that, like Trudeau, he did make some sort of statement like, we're going to outlaw the Bible, hearing the Bible out loud in public, basically. So the irony of it, though, I met this gentleman named Ray Pinsky. Ray runs a Christian think tank up there. So I met him I guess last year when I was going up there for the working on the Grey Cup. But Ray runs a Christian think tank, and so what they do basically is they take stats on Christian things, issues across the country. And so he's very much in the know. He's been at it a long time, knows a lot of people. And so, anyway, so I get Ray's email, and they had a prayer breakfast like a month ago, and Trudeau was there reading the Bible. So what I'm saying, these stories are like, hey, no one speaks English in Montreal. Like, they're just not true.
Correct.
And we were down in Niagara Falls, and we had no problem. We were in Toronto, we were in Hamilton, Toronto. So, that's the way the stories go.
Right.
I think it doesn't matter what I think about that. It's kind of like here, Supreme Court still, I saw a story yesterday this past week that they supported 9-0 free speech. The NRA was in a legal battle with the state of New York. And so I don't know if you saw that Supreme Court sided with the NRA about free speech. The state was trying to take some sort of new angle to, basically not having to do business in the state. Anyway, so Supreme Court still unequivocally supports free speech.
Right.
And so in our country, so we really have no cracks in the dam. So that's not true.
And as well as I do, a lot of it's just the enemy trying to
discourage you.
Haste the gospel. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'll tell you another funny story. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, but so the Grey Cup is in Vancouver this year in November. Grey Cup is Super Bowl. So we were there in Vancouver about 2010 for the Winter Olympics. And this is really, like you talk about the fruit of the gospel and so forth working, right? So I think there's about 8 of us there, and we're staying across the bay. Vancouver's kind of like Seattle. It's really right there by Seattle, and there's this big bay, and we stayed across the bay in a house, and so we get on this huge ferry coming back and forth every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day, this guy, Tim, I think Annie was there, and anyway, we were on the ferry, and those guys, there's a big open space where everybody was sitting. It wasn't the only place to sit, but they were sitting there. And so one of them started. They said, "Hey, does anybody in here know how to get saved?" And they said it to the whole crowd so they could stand up and start witnessing. Right?
Yeah.
This elderly gentleman stood up and he goes, "I do," and we didn't know who he was. And so his name is Ernie. So Ernie, we all talked, and Ernie eventually he knew how to get saved. He was a Christian,
Yeah.
and so he hung out with us that day in
Wow.
Vancouver, preaching and stuff. All right, now listen to this. So we all went home. That was 2010. So I've stayed in touch with Ernie off and on for a while, and we recently, I guess last year before last, became a registered nonprofit in Canada. So I reached out to him to help me with some stuff anyway. So we started talking again. And so we got back in touch and we started interacting. And meanwhile, he never really open air preached really since that time. He really never necessarily done anything. And so last year, there's 3 parts here. Last year, a bunch of us went to Seattle for the All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ernie said, "Hey, I'm going to come down." He rode the bus down from Vancouver. And so we're sitting there in the bus station and waiting on Ernie. Bus stations, they're bus stations, and you're like, that's just crazy stuff going on. And so Seattle's kind of a different kind of place. And so Ernie gets off the bus and comes rolling up, and he's probably mid-70s, and he looks a little frail. And so I thought, man, I thought Ernie is just not going to make it, And so anyway, the next day we went out, and pretty quickly he got up and started preaching.
Mm.
And within about 5 minutes, he got a heckler. And and Ernie had enough spiritual strength to rebuke the guy. And, it was great to watch. I mean, Ernie he's a really kind guy. And but he stood there and preached. He preached all weekend.
Wow.
And so that was July. And so then he said, "Hey, I want to go to London with you." So Ernie and his wife went to London with us. 10 days of preaching. I did 7-8 hours a day. And he was a trooper. And so, and then this year he is going to go to Paris with us for the Summer Olympics. So
nice.
So
Yeah.
Ernie's a great guy, but the story obviously you just never really know how things can happen and who starts preaching and all this stuff going on. It's pretty fascinating.
Praise the Lord. That is good. That's a great story.
So that's cool. Good stuff. Well, looking forward to it. You got any questions about being up there?
Yeah. My biggest question would be if I do try to speak French, it's really going to be Southern fried French. I don't even.
French. There you go. There you go. That's good. That's good. Well, don't hesitate. Listen, if you don't film me, I won't film you, and we won't show anybody.
Oh, okay, that sounds good.
See, that's what he used to do. He'd film me, then he'd turn around and put it on Instagram or something really quick, and he'd get you forever on
Heath would,
there.
wouldn't
So, no, it should be fun.
he? Yeah.
I tell you what you could do. Jeff, how you doing, sir? Hey, I tell you what you could do. Seriously, get Bible Gateway. Or we have an app, and so you get it in French.
Yeah.
And you could read it. I mean, that's what Warren. I don't know if I would do this, but Warren Marquardt.
Yep.
Warren. He has a way. You probably saw him do this. Like, get the Bible, get your phone and start doing the Bible out loud and run it through his speaker. And he did that in Mexico when they was doing it in Spanish. So that's an idea.
Okay,
I don't know
that
how to
is.
do that. I don't know what chords you need to make that happen, but we could hook that up and let it speak in French.
Like we were saying, though, I guess it would depend on the crowd that's around. If they're English speaking or French speaking or both.
That's true.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. That'll be fun. Should be fun. It's an early trip, but early morning, but it'll be fun. Honestly, we'll land. I've got to pick up those booklets and then get the car, get the booklets. We won't get up there about 5 o'clock. So it's going to be an all day track. we changed locations. We're on the other side of the city. It's actually should be pretty good. We I think it's close to a village. I like looking around. I think we're staying by the main highway. So, but it'll take us about 5 hours to get up there, and then and so it'll be
From Albany, correct?
from Albany. Yeah, once we
Okay.
touch down. So probably 6 o'clock. God willing. You don't snore, do you?
Uh,
Do you
little,
snore?
a
A
little.
little bit.
Yeah.
Do you use one of those machines?
No.
They call this thing. All right.
Oh, you're talking about because of our room, the way it's set up.
Well, I mean, do you one of those machines to help you sleep? Do you use one of those?
Oh no, I don't. But you
You bet.
asked me if I snore because of the way our room's set up.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah.
Nah,
So,
not much. Do you?
not that I know.
I've never heard myself.
That's what I'm saying. Somebody might say something different, and but we're gonna give it a whirl.
We'll be fine.
Hopefully, we'll one way or the other, because one way or the other. See, there you go, Heath. Feeling Brad
What'd
on
he
the
say?
road, Heath. Podcasting.
What
We
did
can.
he say? What?
He said, "Bill and Brad road tripping." Bill and Brad podcast kind of style. See, we can speak French to each other on the podcast.
I
And
tell you what, I told my wife and Brother Craig that prayed with us the other week
yeah,
on the
sure,
prayer call. I
sure.
said, "Yeah, I love that brother's. He loves the Lord." But anyways, I told my wife, I said, if there's one thing about this trip, I'm really going to get to know Bill Adams really well. Please.
For better, for worse.
Yeah.
Then there's no coming home early. Don't wake up and go, I got to get out of here. So you got to
Okay.
go all the way. You got to go all the way, huh? Ask Keith.
All the way. Whew. All
Yeah,
the
Heath
way.
went to London. He went all the way. See, he was over there. He met Heath. Were you there with Ernie? So he went all the way. You can drive. You know, the thing up there, you drive on the same side of the road and all that. So life's pretty easy. You can drive though, can't you?
Yeah.
I'm letting you drive at my age, man. I need a little help. Hey, Tim Hortons. Have you heard about Tim Hortons? You know what Tim Hortons is?
No, sir.
It's the coffee shop up there.
Nice.
And there's Tim Hortons everywhere. There's more Tim Hortons up there than there are Starbucks down here. And so that's the one thing about Canada. You'll see those everywhere. That's kind of the one thing that I've learned. There's also a thing called Poontang, P-U. It's really like French fries, like at a festival.
Uh-huh.
You'll take a year off your life, and they just dump everything on it. It's just a Canadian delicacy. You look it up. Year before.
Okay.
So those are the only Canadian delicacies I know. Tim Hortons and whatever that word is, I can't say it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey, if we got coffee, we'll be good, right?
In good shape. That's exactly right. Be in good shape. So we'll have a good time. Tell everybody to keep praying for us. Anything else to share?
Yes. Not that I'm aware of. Looking forward to it, brother.
Okay. All right, Brad. Well, have a good night. We'll see you in the morning, Lord willing. And if you got any questions, you're bringing got your passport out. We don't need any extension cords. That's it. Putin right there. That's it right there. That's what that thing is. Poutine. That's what it is.
Okay.
So look it up. It'll make your heart stop. Anyway, so I can't think of anything special. I think the outlets are the same, and you got a passport, and we should be good to go.
Sounds good.
All right, brother. See you in the morning, Lord willing, Brad.
Morning,
Thanks for
Lord willing.
in.
All right.
Okay. Good night. It should be a lot of fun up there. You know, these trips, you really think about it. I think the one thing about going on the trip is really opened my eyes to just there are Christians everywhere, and we might know that intellectually, but seeing them out there, seeing the churches, seeing the buildings, running into them, it definitely gives you a sense of the body of Christ around the world, and that people are working other places. And I think, if you just stick around the house too much, then you just get a real myopic view of what the church is doing in the world and the possibilities of the church. I think by traveling, I'll give you for an example. In England, we've been over there a bunch, and I just happen to know that there's first of all, there's a large church network, the FIEC, They're independent churches. And then there's a large new Anglican network as well, which I'm a part of. And so while the news may say this and that about the church in England or the Church of England, on the ground, you see something different. I can say in London, too, that one of my favorite places, Trafalgar Square, in the last 2 years, they had these huge Iranian protests in the square. We're talking 5,000 people. It was massive people. Ernie was there last year for it. Heath was there the year before. I don't know if Heath was in Trafalgar Square and saw it, but what I'm saying is that you get definitely a bigger picture of the world as well. We're not so America-centric when you get out and travel, and it does help you get a broader view of what's going on, and helps you not to interpret everything through our own, American Christian lens. Same with Canada and Niagara Falls. A lot of excited Christians to see us out there preaching, including some folks. This one person came up to me in downtown Niagara Falls and said, "We're so glad you're here, and blah blah blah. We need this." Like, you see this, partly what you see is a universal Christian attitude, which is we need preachers out there. Of course, there's a universal attitude we don't, but we do see an attitude. People want preachers out there. Some people appreciate it. You see people from every nation who believe and genuinely believe. And so it does broaden your perspective. And I think that's really helpful. So we're not all sort of driven by the pessimism of the news, and see the optimism really of the scriptures that have come alive in other people's lives in other nations. Like I said, in Canada as well, we've gone in and through about 4 or 5 church networks, created a church list of about 800 churches. And they're, Orthodox churches in Canada, and various levels of size and so forth. So again, the thing there in Canada is to pray for the pastors in Canada, and not think that everything is doom and gloom up there, and pray for the Christians up there in Canada. So just like here in the States, there's plenty of pastors who love the Lord and love the bride, and they're doing the best they can. Pray for these guys and pray for the bride that we get stronger. So, all these other nations as well. So I think that's what you get when you travel. So I personally find that to be helpful, so we're not caught, like I said, 4 times down the trap of the news of the United States. So anyway, keep praying. All right, friends, listen, thanks for tuning in. We hope to be with you next week. Pray for Brad and me up there, that we'll meet some people, that liberty to preach, that the Lord opens the hearts of the people passing by, and that we'll meet some people long term in the situation as well, and get up there and get back and get ready for another trip there. And then we'll start working on the trip to Vancouver for the Grey Cup in November. All right, friends, listen, thanks for tuning in. Heath, Gary, Jeff, thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope to see you next week. Have a good day. Bye-bye.